Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Tables with your host, Rob Bradley,
John Charles Ciccarelli,
James Burrows,
and Damien Hallwood.
Hello and welcome to episode 25. Crikey,
Woo!
there's a 25.
Yeah.
Well,
25.
not consistently, but we have been doing it.
Yeah.
Semi-consistently.
Semi-consistently.
It's the problem with the holiday period and then all the illnesses that have gone around.
Oh,
What?
yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about right now, James.
No,
What?
I know.
No,
Jason.
no, I'm not stuffy and my voice cracking.
You sound lovely.
You rest up, buddy.
The only good side to this of being this sick, especially for recording, is that my voice can go down a couple more octaves than it usually does.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm I can give Barry White a run for his money now. All right. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tales from the Tables, Evening Edition.
I've got some serious AMSR in my ears then. Do it again.
Barry White mixed with McConaughey.
Yeah, okay. All
Yeah,
right. Those are rookie numbers in this racket. You got to pump those numbers up.
Have you guys heard the him reading a bedtime story on Calm?
No,
I think I have, no.
Yeah, it's like,
Is it good?
Yeah, it's just fucking brilliant. I'm like listening to it, I'm like, does this make me gay? I like because I really
Who
love
isn't a little gay for Matthew McConaughey?
I'm not sexually aroused. I'm just like in
You'd
a nice
want to curl
place.
up next to him in bed a little bit. Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
It's like imagine if you walked in and your girlfriend or your wife or your partner was like in bed with Matthew McConaughey. You'd be like,
yeah, that's cool.
You'd be like
Move over.
Disappointed, but like also kind of impressed.
Honestly, I just finished True Detective season 1.
You had a lovely time.
Oh yeah, dude. I just finished True Detective season 1. I'd curl up with that man in bed any day. And if my partner, if I walked in and saw them, I'd be like, "Yep, move over. We better have room over here." So
yeah, right.
It's fine.
It's like what I like to see is a lovely lovely piece of corn in the fields.
Yeah.
And the sun setting over that corn, reflecting. Oh yeah. That's what I like to see. Yeah. It's like, oh man.
Indeed.
JC, the last time we spoke, you were kind of starting that series. Now that it's all over and done with, you still love it?
Worth the hype, every minute of it. It got better. The stakes were great. I think everything everyone had told me about it like totally went through, and it delivered. I skipped 2 and 3 because I heard they weren't good. I did start on 4, True Detective Night Country, which is the one currently airing.
Jodie Foster.
Yeah, Jodie Foster. She's incredible in it, as per unsuspectedly usual. It's a bit of a slower start. I'm only 2 episodes in, so I can't really judge it too hard. It's definitely drawing inspiration from The Thing. We talked about that ad nauseum on this podcast, oddly. But it's definitely, Arctic inspired. Well, the other one was Antarctic inspired, but it's called Night Country because they have just started the periods of 24-hour darkness in Alaska, high up there in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah, so it's like northern Alaska. Jodie Foster plays a detective. She has a partner. There's like this really grisly, gruesome mysterious deaths of a whole research station up there, and they find all the scientists frozen naked out in the ice with their eyes gouged out and stuff. Spoilers. Should have said that. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't started it yet.
That's the inciting incident. That's okay.
You don't learn about all of that till the last minute of like season or episode 1. But yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So,
wait, if you think it's a slow burn, you know that it gets somewhere by the end of episode 1.
Yeah,
you might be able to
get.
You can get away with spoilers being trigger warnings. Like I keep looking at trigger warnings. I'm like, oh god damn it, they smoking it. Oh damn it.
Yep.
I'm gonna watch it. I can't watch it now. I know they're gonna smoke.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Damien, good question. But yeah, true. The first season really holds up. So I'd recommend everybody go watch it, especially if you are
it's fantastic.
Just a fan of a good suspense, or even a little bit of a Lovecraftian fan, because there's a little bit of that eldritch suspense in there.
Do you think you need subtitles to understand what Matthew McConaughey says? When he's been interviewed in the police bit, and he's like all grizzly, and he's got long hair and the beard.
Yeah, with the cigarettes and the beer.
Yeah,
Time is a flat circle. Oh, I found that.
I love that bit at the end. He's in the wheelchair.
Oh gosh,
he's talking about that. That's like really. I was like, wow, oh yeah, he is probably right.
Right. Yep.
Right.
He is. It's great writing. And honestly,
fantastic.
Matthew McConaughey really shines. Woody Harrelson does a great job too, but he very much is Woody Harrelson in that. Like, he doesn't really ever deviate too much. It's certainly the best thing I've ever seen him in, but he only has about 3 stages of Woody Harrelson, and 3/4 of those are him just kind of puckering his lips when he's either annoyed, aroused, or just in general living life. He kind of does this thing. He goes,
I definitely think that if Woody Harrelson realized the gravity of what he was going to be in, he probably would have given a better performance, because I've seen him way better in other things.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, in other things I've seen him really good, like in certain things that he's been in. But with this, he's just playing the state a lot.
Yeah,
isn't he?
Yeah,
he's
he
just
is.
like, I'm grumpy. I'm a grumpy guy. This is who I am.
Yeah, there's not as much subtext as there could be. That being said, it's still a great performance and overall.
But it's like Matthew McConaughey is just like the depth, and that how good was that one shot in the biker camp?
Oh, it's super. It's 8-minute long single take.
Oh yeah, the take.
Where he's high on acid.
Yeah.
I was like,
so
this
good.
is so sick.
You talking about when they go to the projects and
the escape from the projects?
That's a scene, man.
From the bikers. Yeah, the bikers.
Oh,
it's so good.
My God. Where he takes his contact and shoves him in the back. Oh my God.
I can't remember how many takes, how many attempts that took. I think it was in the teens to get that right.
To have to reset all of that, all the action happening around them, move the cop cars, and
really
redo the caps and everything for the guns.
It was a true. I love a true one shot when people do it for real. I know there are movies that emulate it. Like 1917 is a great example of that, which does have some really long one shots, but the whole movie is stitched together editing wise.
Hey, good segue though. Speaking of one shots,
absolutely. But yeah, incredible work on that one shot. And my favorite bit is when they climb the fence. Before we dive into things more D&D, when they climb the fence, the camera follows them to the fence, the fence, over the fence, and down the fence, and keeps on following them. Which I believe they used. They had a Steadicam.
Yeah,
the camera ran with a Steadicam to a cherry picker. Locked himself onto a cherry picker. The cherry picker goes up with the actors across the fence and down. Wow, and then he unhooks himself from the cherry picker and the camera and keeps on running.
Oh, that's amazing.
No wonder it took into the teens' attempts. That's insane. I bet that, if anywhere, is going to go wrong. That's where, it's just, he's not unhooked. And he's jolted as he's
That's a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of fun doing one of those, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah.
How could you? So let's try and get this into the world of D&D. How could you do that in a game?
What
a one-shot set piece with your players.
That travels.
Where it's like really high paced. Yeah, it'd have to be a chase. Yeah.
Honestly, I'd say out of combat. I would say do it as a skill challenge.
Yeah,
and have a rotating background or a scene, or if you're playing in person, just have different images for different parts. I did this for Curse of Strahd recently. I kind of do a little bit of a homebrew with something that happens in the main city of Valaki, or in the main town, depending on how you're running it. And at one point, they're chasing after a vampire spawn that has a MacGuffin that they need to grab. For those of you familiar, it's the bones. And I never run it as combat, because combat, they could destroy the vampire spawn really quickly. But if they're chasing this other one who's knocking over scaffolding and spooking a horse with cart to get in your way and panicking the crowd, and then I let them choose what skill they want to roll. Do you want to try and calm the horse with animal handling? Do you want to try and intimidate the crowd to get out of the way so you can continue your pursuit? Do you want to use athletics or acrobatics to sort of dodge or run past all the falling debris from the scaffolding they just knocked over? Whatever they choose. And that, you find the right chase music, you set it up right, I think that could really shine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are other systems that it probably works better in.
Probably
as well.
better, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if
you can
Blades in the Dark has something like that.
Yeah. I think even like Call of Cthulhu, because there's not as much focus on combat, but you can do like maybe something is chasing you scene, and you're trying to sort of either make like snapshot decisions on which directions to go.
Yeah.
I think that'd be quite cool.
I think maybe what came to my mind was using for D&D anyway, is using the skill challenge, the chase skill challenge, which is great way of doing that. I agree with JC completely. But maybe folding some combat into that, maybe using something like the equivalent of minions from 4th edition, sort of single hit point, but otherwise effective monsters. So imagining the characters, running up the steps of a ziggurat being chased by, painted lizard folk with colorful feathers, and it's like rolling for a skill challenge, but instead rolling an attack. And if you fail the attack, then the creature gets a free hit and you lose a few hit points before that creature is assumed to also be carved down. Whereas if you succeed, you carve the creature and it falls down the stairs. So it's kind of like a free and easy sort of you kill, they kill. You chip hit points, but if you hit them, you kill them immediately. So you can have waves of enemies and make that chase seem incredibly epic. And then perhaps even to build the stakes to a massive crescendo is end that chase in a small or medium-sized combat, where those lost hit points then mean something when the big lizard man kicks through the wall riding his Triceratops, and that's the boss. You've lost a few hit points in the chase. There's some stakes. Now you're in a fight, and at the end of that fight, when the creature finally falls, you play as
right.
Well, you had me at Triceratops.
That's anybody who ever hears of Tomb of Annihilation. I always pitch it as, it's a really dangerous dungeon at the end, but there is dinosaur racing. They're like, sign us up for dinosaur racing. Let's do it.
You get one session of dinosaur racing, and then it's just
terrible the rest of the time.
It's an awful experience from then on.
But
it's like false advertising.
What you want to achieve with a one shot, because when you watch those one shots, it's almost always done to make you feel kind of breathless, to kind of feel like it's relentless, and the fact that it's a one shot pumps that up to 11 because it is a single take. And so as an audience member that the stakes are even higher, especially if you know going into it it's going to be a one shot, which I did for that episode. So you want to emulate that feeling of breathlessness, like it just keeps going. Ending it on a combat after a massive skill challenge with all those stakes, I think that would emulate that feeling of just relentlessness.
I love that idea. And honestly, I did end that vampire chase through the town with a fight in the church. And I've run this every time I've run it, which is now 4 or maybe 5 actually. I've always had something different that they fight. They always end up in the church, but they are always fighting something. And whether it's Strahd himself or one of his big minions, or last time I ran it, they fought Lady Wachter, which I reskinned as a full necromancer. And because there's a cemetery right next to the church, of course, all those zombies come pouring in while swarms of bats break the windows, and they're like, crap, oh my god. But the idea of the minions kind of like wearing you down and like getting you ready and pumped for that final fight is a great idea. I'm going to do that next time. There's going to be a whole bunch of lizard folk running at them in Barovia, and they'll have no idea why.
Fantastic! I did a fight scene in one of my games. The only game I'm running that shit at the moment with the last session, where they got locked inside a tavern with this gang, and there was 20 of them against 6 of them. And it was literally like, okay, here we go. And I sort of set it all up. Whereby I said, right, okay, this is what's around you. You've got tables, you've got chairs, you've got glasses on tables, you've got great big tankards on tables, you've got like a guy's just jumped on top of this table, another guy's just jumped off that table, he's got like a great big bat out, this other guy's got another bat out, and they're coming for you. Roll initiative. And it was like, and the guys in the bar went first. I got the highest initiative, and they literally just like clambered on top of all of them. They basically like got on top of the biggest one out of all of them and started like piling them in.
Yeah.
It was so cool. It's so interesting.
Love it.
Like having the pace, like just up in the pace because there's so many. I was like, okay, but they had like really low hit points. So they would literally like hit one of them, and that person would like be out for the count.
Yep.
and dead straight away.
It's like minion rules. Yeah.
yeah.
Let me guess. I have to. I have to ask. This is the greats words.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
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 I feel like tavern fights is what they're built for.
They love that sort of shit.
Yeah.
They're just like they're all over it. They're like, yeah, great.
Yeah. I take his bat and I shove it up his bum and then I push him into another one.
Yep.
Yeah.
That all happened. Yeah. It's fantastic.
So speaking of that, what I guess is what's the most intense combat or like the highest number of enemies combat you guys have ever run? Because like you just had a 20 like that, and
yeah, I think that's the biggest. That's the biggest
one.
That's the biggest I've done. 20.
I've done in the hundreds, I think.
Ooh,
it's essentially a war game at that point. No, well, kind of.
Ish. Yeah.
Like big enemies, and then just loads of minions. I didn't give them only one hit point though. I did leave them slightly more. So I think they could take probably 2 hits before they went down. But the characters were level 20, so I was like, well, if they fireball in the center, I want them to be taking out a lot of them, but I don't want, them all gone all the time.
Right.
So right. It was a big mind flayer army. So
Sick.
I had like the Elder Brain Dragons. I had 2 of those.
Holy fuck.
I think I had a purple worm in there as well. And then
send me your notes on just forward them to me.
Yeah, so we had some lovely Elder Brain controlled purple worms. And then then that's right, and then just human soldiers that we taken. So essentially, it was at the end of like a 3-year campaign, and various like cities in the kingdom had been taken over. So that as they were sort of building their army, other cities were falling, and their citizens were being added to this Mind Flayer army.
Yeah.
So
sick.
By the time they got into combat, they were trying to like break the control of the Mind Flayers. But ultimately, they were doing a lot of fighting of their people, which is another thing. So I didn't give them totally rubbish hit points. I was like, well, maybe they don't want to kill them all instantly. They didn't seem as bothered as I thought they might be. But
yeah, we'll figure.
My biggest combat is probably Icewind Dale. We talked about the combat previously on a previous episode, I think, where there is a fortress that you can go into in that adventure without any spoilers, and there's quite a lot of enemies in that fortress. If you stumble into it and don't sort of go very carefully and take it room by room, you can kind of kick the hornet's nest a little bit, and they did, but through some incredibly clever use of stacked spells, they were able to sort of keep the horde at bay and actually ended up bottlenecking them and doing a really great job. Most intense combat might be the one I'm in the middle of at home right now.
Ooh. Don't need to know about your personal life, Damien.
Sorry.
All right.
I'm running
if you do want to share anything, it's okay. We're all friends here.
I'm running a blue shadow dragon.
Nice.
An ancient blue shadow dragon.
Nice.
So it is a real tough customer. We're going full tabletop as well. I've 3D printed a dragon, painted it.
Oh, is that that guy? Is that the one you shared in the group?
It is. Yeah,
Nice.
I might share it in the podcast channel if people want to see it. But basically, what I've done is I've got a 3D printed dragon. All my players, we all got together and they painted their minis that I printed for them, which is really cute because most of them had never painted before, so they were all sat around enthusiastically learning how to paint their minis. And then, shout out guys, that was an awesome night. And then I've got a multi-level map made of floating platforms, beneath which is a big pile of what is effectively teddy bear stuffing, like wool. And
cool.
I've got laced through that LED strip lights that are timed to react to the sound of thunder.
Sick.
So when all the lights go out, we have sort of minimal light in the room and have that flashing with sounds of thunder and lightning going on in the background, and it kind of flashes and reacts. It's really epic. And
how cool does that sound?
Being a dragon, it's really intense. Like, it's a really intense fight because she's playing as a dragon. She's not a hit point sponge. She's playing as a dragon. She's intelligent,
smart,
she's
flying
savage,
over,
flying
doing it from above.
Yeah. So that's really we're in the middle of it right now. It's really intense. But yeah,
So
really
cool.
really cool.
So cool.
Great.
I don't know. I feel like if I ran more in-person games, I would be flat out broke because I already spend so much digitally. I buy too many tokens and support way too many people on Patreon for pretty maps that I only use, 30% of the time. And then the other 70%, I'm like, I need the perfect map for this situation. None of these are working. And I haven't attended enough of James' classes to draw my own yet. So I panic and I find one and I'm like, oh, but the night exclusive one is on Patreon for $5. I'll support them. Look at all this other stuff. And then I never end up removing that thing. But yeah, if I were running in-person games like you, Damien, I would want all of that, all those effects, and I'd be so broke.
Like it is crazy how expensive it would get. Even if you're just running something like Curse of Strahd, just all the individual minis you would need to run that, all the different encounters for all the different cities. Like you can, if you've got an old TV, you can use a digital tabletop. That's really cool. At least you can just project.
That's what
maps
I would probably do
onto that, so you don't have to spend crazy amounts of money on like real terrain.
Who does that? Who spends money on terrain? Are those boxes of terrain right behind you there, James?
Yes.
Cool. Not wrong with that, man.
No,
it's great.
No,
I bought a TV for about £200 off Amazon, and it's perfect.
That's exactly I need to get a new one.
It's got like a crap. It's like not like you'd be disappointed if it was your actual TV.
Entertainment,
right?
Yeah. But to have it like on like the deck and to have your maps on there and just plug it into your laptop and just move your stuff across. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect.
The problem I've got with mine is I've had the same TV that I use for my game board now for 15 years, since I was 15. So 15 years. And it weighs a ton.
Yeah, this one I've got is like light as hell.
I need like a new lightweight.
Throw it up.
Yeah.
You need an upgrade.
I'll send you a link. It's like £200. I think like Amazon do those monthly payment things that they do.
Yeah.
I think I did that for it's like £11 a month for like God knows how long.
James, I bet that if you leave your TV at the medieval hall of in Salisbury, in like the back room where we changed last time, they probably wouldn't notice. And you could just use it there you could just leave it there for next time. You don't have to keep transporting.
Yeah, right. There you go.
It's my bedroom TV, so if I don't have it, then I can't watch TV in bed.
Never mind.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Otherwise, ideal, really. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
I can't imagine they'd moan.
Right. Well, I think it's time for the news. We've gassed on quite long enough, I think, with this. So, So, Damien, what news updates do we have this week?
Oh boy!
Yeah, we've had a couple of weeks, so there's a few items. What I'm going to do, I'm going to run through the list of news stories that I've sort of selected, and then basically you guys can sort of choose your story of the week, as it were, the thing you want to choose. So we'll stick with D&D to begin with. Quick PSA on D&D, internet being internet. There was a series of clickbaity titles flying around in the last couple of weeks about Tencent acquiring D&D.
Yep.
They're not acquiring D&D. If you actually follow those articles, they should hopefully tell you that they're actually acquiring the IP for producing things like video games and
video
other
game
media.
licensing. Yeah.
They are not acquiring the license for D&D, which
that
a lot
one
of
guy
titles would have you believe.
Yeah, that one guy on YouTube that made this news kind of big. I forget his name right now, but I can't stand him sometimes. Because he does this all. I've realized that he's made his channel more clickbaity as his history has gone on. It's kind of sad that we know this or that we follow these people. But at first I immediately hooked onto it. I was like, oh my God. I went upstairs. I was like, Dad, Mom, we're being sold to the Chinese. And it was this whole thing. And then I realized, no, this is probably just some misreporting in the beginning that was misinterpreted. They're probably just selling licensing deals like they did with Larry. Sorry. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Damien, Go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. Just a quick PSA on that. Check it out. Don't worry. I could understand your fears. Tencent are a massive conglomerate company that are acquiring video game studios like a gelatinous cube, acquiring adventurers, skeletons.
Wow.
and-
What a comparison.
and melting many of them down like said adventurers. Tencent, please don't hurt me. Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Damien, do you hear that knocking in the back of your door? It's the Bickertons. What are they doing there?
All right, so I'll quickly run through these other items. So we talked a little bit earlier about the Player's Handbook and other revised books coming out in May this year. They're not. Jeremy Crawford has made it clear that they are not coming out in May and that they will still be working on those books in May. So that was never the plan.
Wow. Okay.
So that's one item.
Looking forward to something to read in May.
That's one I know. Another big one for all of you VTT heads out there. Foundry has now got official Dungeons and Dragons support. It looks great. They released a video showing all the features of it. And it looks really beautiful. The layout and everything is really, really nice.
Gorgeous.
Good.
I tried it out briefly.
Yeah.
And, well, I'll save it for the post-discussion of the news.
Yeah. Another quick one. Free RPG Day this year is June 22nd, 2024. So your friendly local retailer often have free starter kit books and things. Many of the names included this year. There's huge Free League, Paizo. There's Story Engine, Kobold Press, Roll and Pray Press, Magpie Games, Renegade Games. Huge collection of studios. There's full lists of them out there participating. The Marvel role-playing game. So June 22nd, 2024, head to your local game store, and I'm sure you'll be able to pick up something that they're putting down for Free RPG Day.
Amazing.
Cool.
Have you guys ever been involved in that before?
No.
Going to pick anything
I've
up?
picked up the little sort of magazine type free booklets for I've got a MechWarrior one somewhere and
cool.
a Warhammer one somewhere. Just these little books that are designed to be like Kickstarter entries into RPGs.
Right on.
Okay, sweet.
So some sort of big news there. I know Paizo have also just unveiled their 2024 releases for Gen Con. So they've got a second Player's Core book coming out. They've got an adventure path or a couple of adventure paths. They've got playtest materials for the second edition of Starfinder coming along. So they're making big waves too.
Great.
So there's a handful of stories. If there's anything you want to particularly highlight there, or you would like me to repeat, go ahead.
What do you think, Rob?
I just because you mentioned Starfinder, I'm kind of like I really want to know what that game's like.
Pathfinder in space. This is what I
Pathfinder in
hear.
space, but just like is it quite gritty in the sense? Is it more towards sort of like your Star Wars, or is it more towards your sort of Star Trek?
Star Wars. It's more Star
I feel like
Wars.
it's heroic fantasy in
and
space,
stuff.
right?
Yeah, it
That's
really
my
is.
impression.
D&D by way of Star Wars is probably my elevator pitch for it.
Is there magic?
I haven't played. Yes, I think so.
I feel like it's innate to the
Like
races.
the Force kind of magic? Or is it something different?
I think it's more D&D-ish magic.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's still like dwarves and elves just in space.
Oh right. Okay.
Right.
Cool.
It's a bit Shadowrunny, but like further, more spacey. Shadowrunny sort of like what between
Cyberpunky.
cyberpunk,
Okay.
and fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm hoping on Free RPG Day there is some superhero RPGs because I've just started reading Wildcards, the George R.R. Martin and alums sort of edited alternate history of the world through wave superheroes. It's based on them playing mutants and masterminds in the 80s, and they essentially just created like a history to it, and they ended up like a whole bunch of really famous sci-fi and fantasy authors adding to these collections of
that's cool.
wildcard stories set in the same world, and it's really, really good. Like I'm really enjoying it.
Is it dystopian or like good?
No, it's good. So it's the stories start just after the Second World War,
right,
up through the 80s and into the early 2000s is sort of where they currently are.
Right.
But
Cool.
like, if you like books like World War Z, where you sort of like get snippets from different characters and different areas around the world, and it sort of builds up like a picture of the world as their stories are told.
Right.
It's really cool. So it starts, post World War II, essentially. Slight spoilers. A alien virus is released over New York, and it sort of melts 80% of the population.
Why do they always pick on us? God,
I
what did
know.
we do to the world? Jesus. Us New Yorkers.
10% are turned into these horribly deformed mutants with sometimes with useful powers, most of the time just useless deformities and like a dog people, or are like 14 foot tall but with a normal human sized head and unable to move themselves around normally. And then 3%, actually it might be higher than the 10% that's deformed, but like 3% turn into what they refer to as aces. So all the ones with terrible powers and deformities are called jokers. Everyone with superpowers are called aces.
Cool.
And it's the wild card virus is the
That's a cool
is the reason.
concept.
And
it sounds like the premise is vaguely Watchmen. Like there's kind of current alternate history where superheroes are real, just not dystopian.
Yeah, I was getting those vibes.
I can't remember when Watchmen was first published. I wonder if it was pre or post that.
It was
I imagine
early 90s.
Or early 90s? Yeah, Alan Moore, right?
So it will have come out before Watchmen then.
I think it's Alan Moore.
I'm pretty sure this was first published in 1996, I think, the first collection.
Right.
So it's really, really interesting. It sort of follows real world allegories and like the Red Scare and stuff in America, and the sort of their take on communists, and also being afraid of superheroes, like through the McCarthy era and Nixon and all that.
I was going to say,
McCarthy. It's really like very interesting, but also all the little stories are great. But it's made me really want to play a superhero RPG. So now
James,
I'm looking at getting one.
Yeah, there's. Cool. I was going to say, to answer your previous question, the Marvel game sounds like it's going to be part of Free RPG Day.
Okay.
However, there is a game I would kind of point you in the direction of, one that I particularly like.
Power Rangers.
Do you know that? Do you know the? It's not Power Rangers. Do you know the Cypher system?
No, I don't. Terrible.
For Cypher system, there is a game called Unmasked.
Okay.
Which is a really cool 80s superhero story.
Yeah.
Where the kids in the story suddenly wake up one day drawn to mundane objects.
Okay.
Everything from, like a paperweight to a pen to a doorstop to just these weird items that they become drawn to and start collecting. And then when they've collected them, they form them all impulsively into a mask that then when they put that mask on, they become a superhero.
Oh, okay. That sounds cool.
And it's a super fun little world, and it uses the Cypher system, which is quite a relatively easy system to kind of get into rules wise. Nice. I've wanted to run it for ages. It's a really cool
I've noticed
system.
We've not actually, Rob, got any sort of superhero RPGs on the go with Rolldark. I don't think we've ever had one.
Nope, we haven't.
No,
we haven't. So
there you go, breaking new ground.
Totally do it.
Power Rangers. I'm working on it. Power Rangers.
Power Rangers would be quite cool.
I gotta sit in on that for a session.
I've seen there's one called Masks, which is sort of for your teenage superheroes, like your adolescents going through sort of that sort of vibe. But I think I'd prefer something a bit more with like more of a theme behind it. So like the 80s stuff of Unmasked sounds like interesting. Well, there's another one as well that's like quite big. I'm not sure if it is still Mutants and Masterminds or if it's something else. But I'm pretty sure they still have like a current role. There was at one point a Wild Cards RPG, which is weird because it started as an RPG game between the writers, and then they wrote about it, and then it created its own RPG. But I think that was a bit of a flash in the pan and didn't really take off, which is a shame.
Nice.
But I would recommend the books. There's so many of them at this point, and they keep getting released. And George R. R. Martin keeps coming out with updates on them, and people like, stop doing this.
Where's Winds of Winter, George?
Where's Winds of Winter?
When is that happening?
Actually,
I think I did hear some news about Winds of Winter getting like the manuscript getting revisions, and apparently the publishing date is coming. But I don't even care at this point
point
anymore. Honestly, I'm done.
Yeah.
But what I do care about is Doors of Stone by Patrick Rothfuss, which I know we'll get probably by Brandon Sanderson at some point, rather than actually Patrick Rothfuss. So you heard it here first, folks. But still, so anyway, to go back to your original question, Damien, I think that the news story that I not really need to focus on too much, but I did try out Foundry VTT's new D&D update, and it is really slick looking. It looks really cool. There is it's heavily inspired by D&D Beyond, so if you're familiar with the D&D Beyond sheet, it integrates really well. I know that they've also released Fendelver and Below the Shattered Obelisk as a full purchasable digital adventure on Foundry VTT with upscaled maps and adjustable lighting and macros, all kinds of fun stuff with that. So it's apparently very click and play, plug and play, kind of easy to go. Oh yeah, James, check it out. That being said, for a person who is as in depth to or in the Foundry VTT world as I am, thanks Face, I blame you, with running like probably 90 modules actively, a lot of those modules are not updated for the new system yet. So as always, I'm in a holding pattern. I had to revert everything back afterwards. I went back to an older D&D system, and I'm just sort of waiting for the core modules that I have to catch up and eventually do my old thing of like, okay, which ones aren't getting supported, which ones kind of do the same thing, what's replacing them. But that's because I run a very specific kind of Foundry VTT game, right? Like I rely a lot on these other modules to do other things like cool spell effects and clean up my UI and stuff. So, but the pages are really cool. They are definitely going to be making some updates to it. Not everything is perfect. I've read their patch notes on it. There's, for instance, the new sheets are only for player characters. So if you're still running NPCs and other sort of like vehicle sheets and stuff like that, they have not been updated. You'd have to use the core standard, default sheets for that. But it looks really, really slick. And you finally have things like backpack management. So you can drag and drop items into backpacks and keep that organized that way. They have a favorites bar, basically everything that other modules were already doing, but now it's all consolidated into one update as the core. Yeah.
I think
it looks really cool.
I think the most encouraging thing about it is the fact that they've done it when they are themselves working on no less than 2 of their own VTTs for D&D Beyond. It's cool that they're still supporting the third parties.
Yes.
Absolutely. After the last couple of years of scandal for Wizards of the Coast and their approach to third parties, I think it's really, really encouraging to see them supporting something like this.
Yeah. I wonder if there'll be some integration with D&D Beyond where you can easily move stuff over at some point. And so what they'll want is to keep, even if you're using Foundry, you will be buying stuff on D&D Beyond anyway.
Yeah,
and
probably. Well, I mean, here's so a couple of my players immediately asked me, they're like, hey, how does this impact the VTT that D&D Beyond is working on and Wizards is working on? And I said, honestly, I don't think it is impacting that much because first of all, I feel like D&D Beyond is working on their VTT very much in a silo. Like I'm talking about their, 3D rendered Hero Forge-esque VTT, their really cool looking one that they debuted. I feel like that one's being worked on very much in private. The D&D Beyond Alpha Access Maps thing that they have going is very, very bare bones. And from the people that apparently have tried it out, it works and it's cool, but it certainly doesn't have the functionality of something like Roll20 or Foundry. Excuse me.
If you go into that, you go into that as a beginner.
Yeah,
it's never used anything else. Yeah.
Right. And honestly, I obviously I'm not in the process. I don't know how involved it is, but from my perspective, this is a really smart move on WotC's / D&D Beyond's part, because all they really probably had to do was, okay the licensing literature and the contracts and send over a handful of assets. Foundry probably did the heavy lifting on this, and from what it seems like it's D&D Beyond inspired. It's not perfectly one-to-one, right? And there already exists a module literally generated by a community member and his Patreon, so the people that pay him basically, that directly imports anything from D&D Beyond into your game instantly at a click of a button, and it's legal and it works and it's great and it works. And if you support him on Patreon, You get not just characters, but NPCs and anything else that you do homebrew and stuff like that. It works so great. I encourage people to make their character sheets on D&D Beyond because everyone's so familiar with it. And then I just asked for the link, and I 2 button clicks later, and I have it in my game.
Great.
So yeah, that already exists. So it would be nothing for them to incorporate something like that easily as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
it's just a smart move overall. And now D&D Beyond can sell twice, of course, right? Because this is where they catch you. Oh, you want the content on D&D Beyond, so it's unlocked and people can access the spells and the characters and stuff. That's great.
Yeah,
and
man.
yeah, and now you want that over in Foundry VTT too. You want to click and play plug and play the adventure. Sure, that's another $20. Oh, you want the physical book? That's another blah blah blah. So yeah, they get you.
That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm. It's a great, very smart tactic, but it's also very convenient. And people who are really in it to win it, like a lot of us are, it's works out for us really well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
maybe and I think when it's set up properly, I may have to give Foundry another proper go because I have it. And I gave up on it, and I continue to use Roll20.
Little James, I'll take you away.
Well, if you insist.
I'll get my coat.
Yeah.
Speaking of physical books, nice segue. I just very quickly want to. My story that confuses me no end is this rulebook revised release date.
Yeah,
debacle.
What is going on?
The thing that confuses me the most is those dates were clearly plastered all over the official infographics from PAX Unplugged. I'm looking at the core rulebook one right now, the Player's Handbook one, 5/21/24, releasing 5/21/24. That was an official release.
Maybe they wrote it the UK way, and it's actually the 21st month and the 5th day of the year.
Yeah, maybe.
And now you've got one of sort of the core faces of the franchise saying, "No, that was never the plan. In fact, we won't even be ready by that time." And I'm kind of thinking, so how did that mistake happen?
It's clearly I don't know why they haven't just said, "Oh no, we pushed it back. We wanted to make some more changes, and it's being delayed."
James,
rather than just be like, "No, it was never that way." Just gaslight the comedian thinking that
it's legitimate gaslighting. It's great gaslighting.
There's physical things with the date on. No, there's not.
No. You're reading it wrong. So okay, this is.
I think you're insane. Actually,
keep this rant as brief as possible. So first of all, Jeremy Crawford has my initials, and a lot of people call him JC, which irks me to no end because they're like, "Well, JC ruled." I'm like, "No, I didn't." They're like, "No, we mean Jeremy Crawford." I'm like, "Rah!" Ever since I've started watching their explanations, reading their sage advice, especially Jeremy Crawford's, and love you, buddy. Don't get me wrong, you're a great designer, and everything else. Especially the sea invisibility rule. Did you heard about this, right?
No,
I don't even know if we talked about it on this podcast. Maybe not.
I don't think so.
Oh, you're gonna love this. All right, grognards, get ready to come out of the woodwork with me. Here we go. So Jeremy Crawford came out because someone asked either on Twitter or on one of the forums whether sea invisibility, the spell that allows you to see invisible creatures and objects, negates the advantage that invisible creatures have against you for being unseen, right? Jeremy Crawford came out and gave this explanation, adjectives withheld for now, how it actually doesn't, and how the rules were designed this way, and how sea invisibility, the magic of the invisibility spell actually allows them to keep advantage. And I forget the exact wording of the reasoning, but it was the most, sorry for my French, bullshit, the most bullshitty thing that you've ever heard. Now, I know of no DM that would say, "Oh, well, yeah, you can see them, but they're still going to have advantage on you because they are technically under the invisible condition, because the invisible condition gives you advantage in your attack rolls, and sea invisibility doesn't negate the invisible condition. It just means you can see them. And I think he said something along the lines of, well, it's really more of like a silhouette. And really, you don't know where the attacks are coming from when you see the silhouette. Don't quote me on it. It was something along those lines and something equally ridiculous.
That's
And
so
it just,
ridiculous.
it's the perfect microcosm. If you listeners, you can't see me, but I'm like wringing my hands literally right now. I'm like making little claws because I'm so angry about this. And it's the perfect example of how, if you watch and you go back, they never, ever, ever admit that a rule doesn't make sense. It would be so easy for someone to be like, oh, actually, you know what, community, that's a really good point. It should work in this way. It should work as intended, as you might imagine. And we'll probably fix the wording in the next update. They are incapable of saying that. They need to represent D&D 5e as if it was perfectly generated without a single mistake, as if they were gods. They're incapable of making any errors with its design, and how things that make absolutely no sense were in fact intentional. And the see invisibility thing is just the perfect example of this. But this doesn't that explain exactly why they're like, oh yeah, no, May 21st or whatever the date was. That you're wrong, as a matter of fact.
But also, who's asking that question? Why does anyone reach out for clarification on that? Because as we've talked about it here, that's silly. Obviously, it negates the advantage.
Because some DMs are so raw. Some DMs are. I'm getting lightheaded talking about this. Some DMs are so raw that they will like literally go to the nitty gritty wording of the thing rather than the spirit of the feature or the spell, and it just makes no sense. If you're listening to this podcast and you're one of those DMs that thinks that see invisibility and you can see an invisible creature doesn't negate that invisible creature's advantage on attacking you, you are wrong. You heard it here. At me on Discord. Let's go. But yeah, that is exactly why I think this is happening right now with the dates. Unless, Damien, you think you have another explanation in the works.
I don't have an explanation. I think that's as best an explanation as we're going to get. I should point out, at this time, we still don't have an idea of when they are actually supposed to be coming out. I would hope it is this year, given it's the 50th. What a perfect year to do it. But at the minute, tight-lipped.
Is it a joke? Is it like an early April Fool's thing? Like, actually, surprise! It's early. It's an April 1 or whatever.
They obviously can't decide something. There's something obviously going on behind closed doors. So they're just like, oh shit, we should have done this or we should have done that or whatever, and they've just made a mess. They've made a mess of it, and they're just like, oh, maybe no one will notice.
Jeremy Crawford probably shouldn't be doing their PR for them and coming out and saying stuff like that. There should probably be a team of people who they give this information to. When he's asked to be like,
Hasbro fired 20% of their workforce.
Tell them you can't comment on it, and we'll release something for you. It's probably what should happen. Yeah. Well, and the other weird part of this, and I'm glad you brought it up, Damien, because I've been wanting to ask you guys. There is very little news or announcements on like what else is coming out this year. All I really think I know is the Vecna book that we've been promised, but there's no release date for that either.
No, that was removed. That was May as well. That was to coincide with the player's handbook. It was the same date.
Oh, and now that's
removed,
not a thing.
That got removed as well. Like all of the dates got removed. So
at the moment, we don't know. Like normally, and last year especially with all the the feedback that they were getting in early Jan and all the vitriol, like we had release dates all the way through like October, November. We knew that Dragon. No, that was the year before. But like we knew when the things were launching, right?
Yeah.
Now we have nothing technically released or slated for 2024. We don't have any dates, and it's February.
It will be because they've had a reshuffle in their organization, and
it must be,
and they just haven't got their act together in terms of like shit. We need to like roll this out because the person who probably is in charge of saying we need to make sure our community knows what's coming up in the next year probably no longer works there. or the people that would have done it normally is no longer there. So they're just like they're probably in turmoil,
right?
Which is a shame.
That's wild. Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Hasbro layoffs that are affecting this. Because that was 20% of their workforce, right? Well, not WotC directly, but it probably was impacted. I do know that some employees at WotC lost their jobs. So wild. Wild
Yeah,
stuff.
real shame.
Yeah.
So, do we have any tales from your tables? And we didn't have any from the DMs this week. So, I don't know if you guys have got anything you'd like to share with the listeners. Games you've been in.
I've got a pretty fun one, I think.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I'm running Icewind Dale on a Tuesday night.
I love hearing about this. Go ahead.
we are
That's the
getting
end, right?
close to the end, and fear not, I won't go into spoilers.
Damn it.
But if you know the final chapter of that book, you know the location that takes place in, then you'll know kind of exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, then it's just a cool thing to look forward to.
Cool.
The characters are searching a large location with lots of stuff to explore and getting pieces of information, clues, and bits and pieces that they need to continue their adventure. And there are certain places where those can be found, and the rest of the locations are just sort of fun encounters that they've got themselves tied into. A recent one involved them wanting to get to kind of the top floor of a tower, and there's some guards outside the front of the tower, which they just didn't want to tangle with. But the tower has a hole in the roof. So one of the players used Thunderstep to take themselves and another player to the hole in the top of the tower, then decided that they would lower a collection of tied together ropes down from said hole and ask the other players to get into their bag of holding, tie it off at the end, hold your breath, and we'll pull you to the top of the tower.
And haul them to the top.
Of the tower. Which,
interesting.
This is another don't at me. I am sure there is probably a reason out there why somebody will say that is not possible. But what a fun idea.
It's a great idea.
What
Especially
a great idea for
heisting
your way into a tower. So I allowed them to do it. It's not like they're going to be in that bag for hours while they infiltrate a location. They're in there for a minute or two at most. So I 100% allowed it. What a fun way of getting into a tall location. Somebody can do it magically. The rest of them need to get there quickly. Get into the bag of holding, hold your breath. We'll tie it off and we'll bring you up on a rope. What a great idea.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Like you said, there's probably like 6 reasons why it wouldn't work. Like the breathing rules for the bag of holding divided by the number of creatures in it, the total weight, blah, blah, blah. But rule of cool.
Yeah.
Supersedes.
And they made doubly sure that they did not, because they have one other bag of holding and a quiver of Elhona, which is another type demi-plane object.
Nice. Yeah.
They made doubly, triply sure that nobody was holding those items when they got into the bag.
Yes. Astral portals notwithstanding.
Because that would have been a disaster.
Brilliant.
But it was really, really good fun. So they got into the tower and they met the denizen at the top of that tower. If you know the denizen of the top of that tower, it's another really fun one. They're looking into a telescope, is all I'll say. So yeah, that was my tale from the table. They had a lot of fun concocting that heist idea.
I bet they did.
And there are so many fun locations. Like if you want a big sort of kind of not quite hex crawl because it's not a full region, it is just a sort of city scale location. And you want some fun encounters in a kind of a city scale location, check out the last chapter, especially if you have no intention of running the full book. There's some really fun encounters in there.
I have literally lifted that chapter and the last 2 chapters, in fact, and put them in, I think, 2 or 3 other games that I've run because they are that much fun. And now I'm actually running Icewind Dale for real as a home game, and they are going through it. They're almost in the exact same spot, Damien. Which listeners, you don't know this, but Damien and I constantly send each other WhatsApps just to talk about like, oh, what did your players do with this? Oh yeah, that's so cool. That's a great idea. I'm going to do this, and here's where they are. So yeah,
brilliant,
very cool.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, I got to think of a tale of a table. I feel like I have so many. I had a really good encounter in Curse of Strahd, which is my second home game that I'm running right now. My players, so I had a lot of bit of content to Curse of Strahd, but spoilers a little bit, but not too heavy. There's a location later on in the adventure, probably around the midway point or just past it, where they get to explore a ruined castle / manor, which once belonged to an order of knights that had opposed Strahd's initial invasion of the valley. And you're supposed to get something to bring back into that manor to sort of basically complete the quest, get the knights, the revenant knights, because the knights still haunt the manor. They're obsessed with their failure over Strahd, and they don't fight Strahd anymore because they want Strahd to suffer in his own domain. But there's something you're supposed to bring back. And again, spoilers, but this is only because this is the only version I run. It's a dragon skull, because the knightly order was led by a silver dragon, which, if you know D&D, they're good aligned creatures. So the canonical location of the skull in Curse of Strahd is in Ravenloft. And there's a lot of people in the community out there that say, maybe don't have them go into Ravenloft. It really depends on how you're running it. Ravenloft is a good location to visit before you go there for the final encounter. But it's so buried in there, and it's in such a very specific location, which is very close to some other major story spoilers, that people are like, you may want to consider putting the skull elsewhere. So long ago, I came up with this idea, totally stolen from the intro cinematic to Wrath of the Lich King, the expansion for World of Warcraft, where not too far from this castle, the players can go and find the frozen over remains of the dragon, and the skull included. And the presumption is that Strahd battled this dragon long ago and left the remains there to sort of freeze over in the snow and the ice. And so as soon as they get there, I had Strahd show up. And in this homebrew game, it's a she. I'm running the she as the ancient sort of version of this. And so she flies down to the ice. She taunts the whole party. She reveals that one of them is a traitor and has been feeding her information about the party. That's why she knows so much about them and their past. So she kind of starts getting the party real suspicious of one another. And then she finally takes this gem that she has in her hand, punches through the ice, and places the gem on the skull of the dragon, where its necromantic magic sort of takes over, and the dragon, cue the Wrath of the Lich King music, where, you know, the claw breaks through the ice and the whole thing drags itself out and roars at them and stuff. And then they have a dragon fight while Strahd watches, sort of sizing up their strengths, learning what the party can do. And they had a blast. It was very, very epic. It was close. I didn't pull any punches. I kind of homebrewed the stat block for it. I didn't quite want it to be a Dracolich. I didn't quite want it to be one of the undead dragons from the new Dragonlance stuff. So I kind of homebrewed the stat block a little bit, but it was still like a CR 12 or 13 creature, which is quite high for the party at this level. They're like level 6. But there's a handful of them. There's 7. And they brought it down in about 3 rounds. Now, it was an epic 3 rounds, but it was, here's why. One of them is an Echo Knight fighter and got off with an action surge at level 6, 8 attacks in a row.
Holy shit.
8 attacks in a row. All of them hit, because I use like optional flanking rules. So not only did he have a +2 bonus, he had advantage for other reasons. That guy, every single one of those hit. He had a great sword, and he was dealing additional damage on top of that for another reason. It was just, I watched that stat block, or that health bar, go from about half to about a 10th in a single turn of combat. And then the wizard finished it off with a hit of a firebolt, a strong firebolt. And it was beautiful. I've never seen the party so happy. They were just cheering and everything else.
Right.
And then at the end of it, Strahd sort of disappears, and the spirit of the dragon comes out and is basically like, thank you for freeing me. Here's the whole history, and I'm going to help you bring my skull back to Argynvost Holt. Ooh, spoilers. And I will help you out. But of course, this is the final bit of this story. I can't but help always play this dragon and the human form that he takes as Sean Connery from
Dragonheart
from the mid-90s. So the moment that he emerges, he's like, "Thank you for saving me. I'm honored. And if you would bring my skull back to my knights, I will have you swear the oath." And I literally like pull elements of the Knights of the Old Code bits from that movie. And they loved it. One dude just broke completely and was laughing. He was like, "Your Sean Connery is so good." And so they brought it back. The knights were about to, double cross them, but then the dragon re-shows up and he's like, "Remember your oaths, men. There can be only one." And then sure enough, there was a lot of satisfaction. And then I told them that they didn't level up and they all got really mad. But it was great. It was still a lot of fun.
Brilliant.
I weirdly, I totally agree with the Dragon Skull location because I'm running Curse of Strahd for a group at the moment, and I was like, they're not going to Ravenloft because I know that they won't want to explore it twice. So if they go there, they'll explore a load of it, and they're quite completion-y as well. So they'd probably try and hit every single room when they go the first time, and then when you go back, even though the encounters might be different, and Strahd will be trying to kill them more this time, and it'll be a final boss battle, they'll have seen it all already. It doesn't I feel like you build up to going to Strahd's home. Like he's dogged them around the country. So I've put it in the Amber Temple, the skull.
Nice. Yeah, a lot. That's a popular location for it.
Yeah.
But then there's like the logistics of bringing it down.
Is that Will and Luke's group?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Nice. Where are they right now?
Well, actually, I'm seeing them this weekend. I'm going to Luke's house for the Super Bowl. So.
Oh, cool.
I'll see you.
The superb owl.
Most of them are turning up. The superb owl, yeah. Got my superb owl costume, a little sash that says superb and an owl mask. Big,
that's all you could afford at the end.
That's all I could afford, yeah. The wings I had to make myself. So I've been hunting pigeons with my cats.
Will they get it? Do they watch what we do in the shadows? Okay.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to Rolldark Fest because a couple of them are coming and they're at my table and they've bought some real cool looking armor, which means I need to up my costume game. Otherwise, they will be outdoing me considerably.
Fantastic.
One thing that was a great idea there, just a quick one to call out from JC's story there, was Strahd telling the party that one of them had been feeding them information. You didn't indicate whether that's actually true or not, but either way, if you're looking for a fun way to spice up your villains, have them do that. Whether or not the party is actually feeding them information, have them just show up and say, yeah, one of you is betraying the rest of them and you're feeding me information. Thank you, Bob, as we all know that every party of D&D has a Bob. Thank you, Bob, for all the information you've given me. I can now destroy all of you and watch the players just fall apart. So, what? You're doing what?
Well, I've had Strahd go and mind control each one of them to do something at a certain point.
Ooh, that's fun. I really need to use the charm more.
Yeah. One of them, unfortunately, where you save the townsfolk from the werewolves, killed an innocent townsfolk, which when they brought back to the town, there's that hidden werewolf child amongst them. So the townsfolk are like, well, there's the right number of people, but
that's funny. They're just getting I think my players are close to getting to Kresk. They had a slight deviation. They're going down to the Wizard of Wines winery right now, but they're going to go to Kresk.
They did that first. They went. Oh no, they do Kresk, then Wizards, then the winery, then back up. But that
was literally my last session. I had prepped Kresk and everything that was going to happen in Kresk, and then they were like, "Actually, let's go to the winery first. That's just a detour to the south." And I'm like,
"Yeah."
I have a real quick question on Curse of Strahd. Being that I'm in the midst of writing an adventure that has inspirations from the way that is structured and the villain. What do you think it is? Do you think it's Strahd that makes Curse of Strahd so popular? Is it Strahd, or is it more than that?
I think it's the theme more than anything. The gothic horror, vampires, werewolves, sort of standard, sort of sleepy, hollow vibe of the whole place. It's also quite grim, and I think that people who like to take their RP seriously can sort of that's something that people like about it. It's certainly something that I like about it. You can still have a jokey Strahd game, and God.
100%.
I have, but there is that underlying current of seriousness and danger the entire time, especially if you have Strahd showing up. I think having a villain whoever it is turn up multiple points during the game to interact with the party, especially when they are definitely at a level where they will not defeat him when they first interact with him.
I did that with Tomb of Annihilation because no spoilers, but there's kind of a very late reveal as to the architect of that adventure.
Right.
Very, very late. In fact, pretty much at the final encounter in the book, it reveals who the architect of that is without ever hinting at them at any point prior to that. It does a great bait and switch on a different character that might be the villain, but then I had that villain show up frequently throughout the adventure and be much more present because it's so.
I think
much
that's
more
a
fun.
great idea, Damien. If I were ever to run Tomb of Annihilation again, I would do exactly that. It's such a stupid thing too, especially if you're running it in person and you pull out the book every day, because the villain's on the cover, and then you never see them until the literal probably last or penultimate session. It's kind of ridiculous. What about you, Rob? What do you think? You've played Curse of Strahd or run Curse of Strahd?
Yeah, it was one of the first campaigns we ran. Actually, I think it's good because it's a very easy way to play with when you've got beginner players who also I think are on the fringes of fantasy being beginner, like they're not quite in tune with with like a fantasy setting.
Right.
It's a good way of getting them in because it's you've just
a familiar
got
story.
It's a familiar story. Yeah, it's vampire. Yeah. They don't have to strain their imagination too much to imagine the situation they're in.
That's true.
Yeah,
and I think because actually you can set it up so the players go into the mists and their player characters are just as confused. They don't have to know a whole load of backstory about the setting. Or even like, I don't think you need to do that in regular D&D, but there's that thought that a lot of people have where you're like, oh shit, well, I don't know, would my character know this? But in Curse of Strahd, you go through the mists and you're in somewhere new where your character's never been before, you've never been before, you don't know. So okay to ask questions.
I think teases. Go ahead, Rob. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say I like the difference between the adventures as well, because with the Curse of Strahd, it isn't on rails.
Right.
So it doesn't you don't open it up and go, okay, page 1, I now to read this bit out, then I need to read this bit out, then they're here, then they're there, then they do this, then they do that. It's like it doesn't spoon feed you in a way that is like, like some of them. I think the was the Princes of the Apocalypse that series. Yeah, and also the Tiamat series, the Dragon series, the early
Tyranny
one.
of Dragons.
Tyranny of Dragon.
Descent into Avernus is a lot more linear than you would imagine it
is.
Well.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's very much like
Icewind Dale isn't. That's very sandboxy.
They're good if you're a DM that's a beginner DM that doesn't want to use your imagination, doesn't want to be a storyteller and really kind of come up with your own stuff. Whereas I think Curse of Strahd is a really good stepping stone for those DMs that then want to go and make their own epic stuff.
Yep.
It's
a really good.
I think it's good for first-time players, but not first-time DMs.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can do it, but I think there are, like you said, I think if you're a first-time DM, you can want that sort of more linear adventure to kick off. But I suppose if you go straight from doing the starter adventure, by the time you finish that, I think you're probably okay to go into Strahd.
One thing I like about the non-linearity of it is, unlike all the others that are very non-linear, it's an open location, but it's a limited open location.
Yep.
It's like a small region, whereas the rest is, a whole island or a whole northern region of Icewind Dale.
Or a whole world if you're playing Storm King's Thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even with Icewind Dale, if your characters are really determined to be like, no, we want to go real far south, I mean, there's technically nothing stopping them. I mean, they're abandoning the adventure, but if they're like, no, we want to go south to do a specific thing before we go back up north, you're like, well, there's nothing I can actually do, I guess, to stop you if your heart's set on doing that. Whereas in Strahd, they're like, well, I want to follow the road and keep going west. You're like, okay, well, you're either turned around or the mist starts choking you. So turn back. You are limited. You cannot go that far.
Right. I think all of these tease probably my belief. I think Strahd is extremely compelling as a villain, and the similarities, the accessibility of it. Everybody knows the Dracula story, so that's easy, or Castlevania. But I actually think it's the structure. Bless you. Oh, I'm getting you sick through the mic, Rob. Achoo.
I was literally like, where's the mute? Where's the mute? Where's the mute? I just came out. Sorry about that.
Brilliant.
I was just
No, but I was going to say, I really do think it's the structure, which is what we've kind of been talking about. But the fact that it is a sandbox, not quite on rails, but like you said, James, limited. I think honestly that's its biggest strength. And the fact, like, it could be anybody. It could be a lich. It could be a vampire. It could be anything that they fight, right? And whether you tease him a lot or tease him a little, or in my case, it's a she or they or whatever, is interesting and definitely usable, but it doesn't make or break the adventure. I think it's the structure of it that makes it so popular.
It has
honestly.
a nice replayability mechanic as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, with the
tarot card deck.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think, and here's the other thing, the shared stakes. And this is something I've been wanting to talk to you guys for a while about, because I struggle with this, especially in a campaign I'm running or I'm planning on running. The shared stakes idea, the real big compelling reason for all the players to be together, right? Yes, you can give them an adventure. I think most, if not all, of the 5e books suffer from this, all the adventures. They don't actually have a unifying reason for the party to be on this quest, the exception being Curse of Strahd. You have all been drawn into the mists. You are all the only outsiders. You are all trying to find your way back home. You learn that doing that is, or the way to do that is by fighting Strahd. That is a wonderful hook, right? It is also a frequently abused hook, and it works really well with Strahd. And if people have played Strahd, they've, tried and trued it basically at that point. The other good one is a shared peril like Baldur's Gate 3. Spoilers for the first 5 seconds of that game.
Yeah.
You end up with a tadpole in your brain, a mind flayer tadpole. You and the rest of the party that you gather are all tadpoled. You have these shared stakes. That is the reason for your adventurers to be together. You are trying to find a cure. You realize that doing that, or the only way to do that, is by confronting the absolute. So here's my question for each of you. What are some other ones? Apart from you're infected and you're all trying to find a cure and you're all trapped in a domain or in a private place with no way of getting out unless you all work together, what is another extremely compelling reason to get the whole party to work together in the first place?
So fate entwined. So maybe you feel each other's pain. You're all connected in a certain way like that. So I think I want to say the series Sense8 did something similar, where like maybe you'd have like glimpses of memories for other people, or see what they're seeing at certain points. So I think something like that would be cool.
Sense8's inspired,
Also, the new book, the Planescape one, has a thing where you all wake up in the morgue together. And every time you die, you go back to the morgue.
I love that.
That's
super cool.
That is cool. Sorry, I got excited there. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
The first thing that sprung to my mind, and I don't know why I went here, is the Nightmare on Elm Street, where the party slowly discovers that their collective families were all involved in something that's now come back to bite them generations later.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
Interesting. Okay, so ancestry.
Yeah, so Freddy, spoilers
or like
for a very old
the
movie.
Runaways comics.
Yeah, Freddy, it's revealed slowly through that movie that the parents who are denying any knowledge of this dream-haunting monster actually know exactly who it is and why they might have cause for vengeance. So slowly revealing to your players that their collective families were involved in some plot or curse or something could be a fun way of doing it.
That's cool. I need to write these down. These are good.
What
I've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street, actually.
Really?
Yeah, never got around to it.
It's dated. It's
Is
aged.
it? Oh, I thought you were going to say it was
it was always a bit cheesy, but
it's both dated and not.
Yeah.
I feel like if you go into it expecting cheese, you will not be disappointed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Going with cheese.
It's a good horror film. It's the scariest bits are obviously the teenagers being attacked while they're asleep.
Yeah.
That's horrific to see. But
right.
and that's definitely
It's very gory. Yeah,
I have a lot of like
very good.
cultural osmosis of it. Like I know what Freddy Krueger looks like. I know the claws thing. I know a few lines from it and whatnot. But like I've actually never seen it. And my major frame of reference for it is that like one of the earliest episodes of Rick and Morty, where he's like, "You can run, but you can't hide, bitch." Oh, I guess you can hide. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Also watched for a very, very young, I think, first ever leading role of Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What? That's
Yeah.
crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah, didn't he?
That's wild.
I can't really. I think the main thing I always tend to do is if it's beginner players and they've never played before, I always do it. I set it up so that they've left their school of learning as their class. So like they've learned and they've been given like some kind of mission by their elder or by their teacher to go and fulfill. And when they go there, they meet other people who have also been given a similar quest. And it turns out that all of their elders, all of their other like the people that taught them their class, all used to be in an adventure party together. And they've like basically got like, you're my best student. I'm going to give you to my other person who used to be in an adventure party with me to work together in order to achieve some sort of greater sort of problem that might be happening.
That's
in the world
really cool. I
Or,
like that too.
I like that idea, but you could also do it as in members of my old adventuring party also know where this magic item is, and we all want it. So we've trained a team.
Yeah.
Now we're too old to go and retrieve it, and all the members of my old party have done the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's
like
really
that.
cool.
That's basically what I do. Or what else? Do or die situations. So in I
the gun
often
to
do a
the
game.
to the head scenario, right?
Yeah, so I often have it like they're all prisoners. Like the
Elder Scrolls opening.
Yeah,
Starting
do
in
you remember,
prison.
Yeah.
do you remember? Oh, where is it?
Out of the Abyss opens
Yeah, that's
that
right.
way.
Out of the Abyss.
Out
Yeah,
of
they
the
all start
Abyss,
off. They all start
right.
off in a. That's
Prison
that's
camp,
not,
right?
It's not. Yeah. It's not a great like game, that one. It's not like a great module, but the beginning is excellent. They're all trapped together, so they're they want to escape. That's
Right,
basically
right.
what they're trying to do, and through that escape, something happens, and then they learn about some kind of awesome thing. But while they learn about that like amazing thing that they could do or quest that they could do, they get to see each other's abilities and go, "Oh, actually, we're all pretty handy. We should probably work together."
Nice.
Yeah.
That kind of
Yeah.
thing. And you have
You
like
kind of
like
hope.
an NPC in there to like basically be like, "Hey, you guys are all really good at this stuff. Maybe you should
Right,
all work
right.
together."
You kind of hope that the parties will kind of go for it, right? You're as a above table, you're a player who wants to play this game, so hopefully you find a compelling reason to. But sometimes here and here's why I bring it up. Sometimes the acting or the I'm in character part of their character is so strong that they can't find a good reason to risk their lives this high. So I'll give you this example in this homebrew game that I have, which I've run before at Rolldark and stuff. The party, I do have a compelling reason, and it ends up being rather similar to Out of the Abyss. They actually end up as fugitives, right? They are wrongfully accused, and their names and their faces are plastered up on wanted posters, and they have to go and prove their innocence. But it takes a while to get there. This doesn't really happen until level 5, and I have the adventure starting at level 1, kind of like a slow burn mystery. It's about mind flayers, folks. Yeah.
What, you're doing mind flayers, JC? That is someone like you.
We should hang out.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so in the beginning when they start realizing that there is like a world threatening sort of aspect in the top of it, they're like, I was just in it for the bit of money that was being promised. I'm not a hero. I'm not an archmage. If this is threatening the whole Sword Coast, say, I don't think that I'm the right person cut out for this. So you hope that there's investment from the players, but sometimes there's a little too much investment, and they're like, yeah, no, my character is like, he's just in it for this reason and that reason. He wouldn't really want to get into it. So I'm on the verge of getting them into this shared situation. But that's the thing. They have to have a good reason for being part of a party. And all the ones you've given are excellent examples. I'm going to start incorporating some of these. And I think it's awesome stuff.
If you're doing a sea campaign as well, being on a sinking ship together, crashing on an island, so you're stuck together, anything sort of like that, any sort of bottle episode type scenario where you are stuck somewhere together for whatever reason is pretty useful.
Or shared the same dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually,
that
that's
kind of
how I
thing.
usually start Chris Estrad. Is without they're not in Barovia yet. Is my session 1, and then through session 1, they all have gotten a dream to accept a missive. And then that missive takes them to a Vistani, and that Vistani takes them into the mists. That's my sort of hook.
Right.
The wolves chase the Vistani wagon that they're on, and they have a fight scene while they're shooting from the back of the wagon or attacking wolves in the back from the melee guys, and then
I think
they end up plunging through the mists.
If you're writing an adventure and you don't have a thing that's as clear cut as a very definitive reason why you are all connected, the only other way to do it is to kind of take each of the classes in isolation and just put together a short paragraph and think about why. Like, if the rogue in the party is always a tricky one because they're then unlikely to be there for altruistic reasons.
What?
So
rogues? They're the most noble players I ever got.
Have their rogues, their thieves guild or equivalent, interconnected to what's going on, even if it's indirectly. So they're on a secret mission to find out why they're being affected. You know, it's not so much important for good boys like paladins and clerics who are going to do it because it's the right thing to do and because their priesthood said so. But things like that, where it's a guild or similar that you're connected to, is in some way linked to what's going on, either directly or indirectly, and you have a secret mission to find out what's going on top of get rich and famous.
Yeah. Well, speaking of get rich and famous, I never have this problem with Waterdeep Dragon Heist because the hook is so blatantly, blaringly obvious. It's like, get rich. That's your hook. You're all working together because you realize you have a better chance of getting rich if you do. That's it. Oh, there's 3 crime lord families against us right now and several villains. There's a cult. Who cares? We're getting rich at the end of this. Let's do it together. It's such a throw the shit to the wall and see what sticks kind of attitude about it. And I love it. I love that adventure for that reason.
Actually, your intro to Barovia then, JC, with the chase and stuff, do you then run Death House once they get in? Or do you not bother with Death?
I do. Basically, if you really want to know the ins and outs, they all receive a dream. That's how it starts. And it's actually Madame Ava who's contacting them through the dream. They think it's Madame Ava. They accept the missive. It's Lord's Alliance missive. It's a fake missive. They meet with the Vistani. They are moving towards a house that needs investigating with a plunge into the mists because the house kind of exists on both planes at once. Then when they get there, they're looking for someone in particular. It's Van Richten. They don't find him there, but they see that he's passed through there. And that's basically the whole thing. So they get to Death House, and then sure enough, as they walk out of it, their Vistani person is dead. And they have a lovely letter from Strahd being like, welcome to Barovia. Take a look around. You know, it's one of those. It's great. It's great.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do a game on the podcast. What do you guys think?
Yes. Live play, live stream, live play. Yes.
Start doing. What do you reckon? Do you reckon I would like to try out Call of Cthulhu a lot.
I would too.
Yeah, I'd like to run a Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Y'all already know how badly I want a Call of Cthulhu game in my life. So
anything with tentacles, JC's like, yep, that's me.
We should totally do it. Maybe we could we could probably still do the podcast as we are.
Has anybody here been a lore keeper for Call of Cthulhu before?
I played in the game. The same game that I think.
Start a set.
You played in JC with Nay, one of the other old
Alex, Nay, you and me. Yeah. That was the 4. Where it was a one shot by Nay, which was awesome and a lot of fun, but it literally had Cthulhu show up at the end, and we were like, "Oh what? Shit!"
Cthulhu just turned up.
Yeah, we lost. We lost. We lost
100%. We got.
Isn't that the point?
I remember very specifically. We got poisoned
to lose
at a party. Yes, exactly. It's designed. You're designed to lose.
Died so hard.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Who would like to be the DM or GM?
I'd like to give it a go.
LM.
do it.
LM.
Yeah.
Lore Master.
All right. Cool.
Lore Master, Lore
We'll do
Keeper,
Theatre of the Mind,
Keeper of
James,
Arcane
so you
Lore,
don't need
it's
to worry about
cheaper.
maps and stuff.
No, yeah. I mean,
Any of that
for
business.
Call of Cthulhu, I think Theatre of the Mind works
Yeah.
very well. So
Yeah, we don't, and because obviously because we've got listeners, you can't see it anyway. So.
yes, if you give me a date, I will have stuff prepared by then.
Or you
because
could
I
do
will.
it
I need
visually.
a hard date because otherwise I will not do it.
Yeah,
Prep in
Do it
time.
on Foundry, James. All maps, all tokens. Do it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All maps, all tokens, all the time.
Just as long as there's
No,
some, because here's the thing with me and Theater of Mind. It works great in person for me. In online, there's the expectation of looking at something because you're looking at a screen, and for the sake of it being basically in a glorified Zoom call, as long as there's like handouts or like some visual art that we can look at with a little bit of background music or something, that's all I ask.
Yeah, just mid-journey imagery.
Yeah. Rob, you're on that, right? Yeah. Speaking of which, see my email. Cool.
I did see your email. Yep. I'll update
Okay,
it.
cool.
The only problem with using
I'm on it. Sorry.
if trying to use AI for horror sort of theme stuff is that it's like censorship block won't let it get real gory or gross or anything.
Right.
So you can't even really.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much I get that for tentacles every time I'm trying to describe something with tentacles. I'm like, damn it, Midjourney, I'm not a hentai weeb. I just want an eldritch monster ripping someone from the inside out. Why is that so hard?
Yeah, right.
Why is it all pixelated?
What do you mean, James? I don't know anything's pixelated.
Uh-oh. He's on a VPN, guys.
Yeah, right. What's a VPN? I didn't know anything about that either. Is that like a thing? What's that for?
Oh, God.
We will never know.
Both of you busted. Cool. Well, let's leave it there, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in yet again. We'll have details with regards to joining the Discord community in the main bit of the stuff for the podcast.
Yeah, the metadata.
Yeah, we'll hear you guys, or you'll hear us next week.
Woo!
Nice one. Thanks,
Goodbye.
everyone.
Awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.